Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that'll flip the script on how a man treats you. You don't have to beg. You don't have to scream. You don't have to prove your worth to somebody who doesn't already see it. All you have to do is this: stand in your truth. Walk like you know who you are. Act like your love is a privilege, not a convenience, and watch how he starts treating you differently. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something real clear. If you don't value yourself, nobody else will. It all starts with self-respect. When you carry yourself like you matter, people notice. When you act like your time, your energy, your heart are valuable, people begin to treat them that way. But when you constantly give and give without demanding anything in return, that's when folks get comfortable. Comfortable treating you like an option. Comfortable showing up late. Comfortable not showing up at all. That stops the moment you decide you deserve better. Not just say it, but really believe it. Self-respect isn't about being loud or aggressive. It's quiet. It's in how you walk away from disrespect. It's in how you don't argue with someone who's already shown you they don't care. It's in how you stop calling first, stop begging, stop lowering your standards just to keep someone around. See, people can feel it. They can feel when you're desperate. And they can feel when you're solid in yourself. A woman with self-respect walks into the room differently. She doesn't have to chase, doesn't have to explain herself, doesn't have to overextend. She just is. And that's enough. And let me tell you something else. A man might not say it out loud, but he watches how you treat yourself. If you tolerate disrespect, if you make excuses for bad behavior, if you accept the bare minimum, he learns that he can do just that. But if you carry yourself with dignity, he knows he has to step it up. Because a man knows when a woman won't tolerate nonsense. He may test her at first, but once he sees that boundary, once he sees that she won't chase him when he pulls back, he starts to look at her differently. You ever notice how the same man that was ignoring you starts texting again the moment you go quiet? That's not magic, it's self-respect in action. You stop feeding his ego. You stop overplaying your part. And the silence, that silence says everything. It says, I'm not sitting around waiting. I've got a life. I've got peace. I've got value. And that's attractive because there's nothing more powerful than a woman who doesn't need validation to feel whole. That's the type of woman who doesn't just turn heads, she changes minds. It's not just about men either. Self-respect changes how your friends treat you, how your coworkers talk to you, how your family shows up for you. When you start setting standards, people either rise to meet them or they walk away. And either outcome is a blessing, but you got to be willing to lose people in order to keep yourself. That's the real challenge. Because too often we hold on to people who lower our energy, drain our spirit, disrespect our boundaries just because we're afraid to be alone. But let me ask you this. What's lonelier, being by yourself or being with someone who doesn't see you, doesn't hear you, doesn't value you? You teach people how to treat you by what you allow, by what you stop, and by what you reinforce. So, if you're always the one calling, always the one fixing, always the one sacrificing, pause, look at the pattern. Ask yourself, what would someone who truly respects themselves do? Would they stay silent while being mistreated? Would they keep proving their worth to someone who doesn't appreciate it? No. They would pull back. They would breathe. They would trust that the right person won't need to be begged, reminded, or warned. The right person shows up, and if they don't, then they're not the one. So do this. Love yourself enough to demand more. Respect yourself enough to say no. Walk like you know you're enough, because you are. And when you start doing that, I promise you, people will shift. Their energy will shift. How they speak to you will shift. Because self-respect isn't just something you have, it's something people feel when they're around you. And once they feel it, they either rise to meet it or they get left behind. Either way, you win. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about something that will completely shift the way a man sees you. It's called boundaries. Now, I know sometimes the word gets thrown around like it's just some trendy thing to say, but let me tell you, setting boundaries is one of the most powerful and attractive things a woman can do. It's not about being cold. It's not about being mean. It's about knowing your worth and refusing to settle for anything that falls beneath it. Because when you draw that line in the sand and say, this is how I expect to be treated, everything around you starts to change, including how he treats you. Men don't always say it, but deep down they respect a woman who has limits. A woman who says, no, you don't get to talk to me like that. No, you don't get to cancel on me last minute. No, you don't get access to my body, my time, or my heart unless you're showing up fully. That kind of woman doesn't have to chase. She doesn't have to cry. She doesn't have to repeat herself. She stands firm, and because of that, she becomes unforgettable, because there's nothing more attractive than someone who respects themselves enough to walk away when they're not being valued. When you set boundaries, you teach him how to treat you. If you accept inconsistent behavior, if you laugh off disrespect, if you make excuses for his silence, you've taught him that he doesn't have to do better. You've taught him that the bare minimum is good enough. But the moment you say, I'm not accepting this anymore, and actually follow through with action, that's when he starts paying attention. That's when the energy shifts. That's when he starts realizing, oh, she's not playing. I need to step it up. You see, boundaries aren't about punishing someone. They're about protecting your peace. Because once your peace is disturbed, everything in your life suffers. Your confidence, your focus, your self-esteem. So when you say no more, what you're really doing is protecting your energy. And when a man sees that you guard your energy, that you're not afraid to walk alone if you're not being respected, he sees you differently. He starts treating you differently. He realizes you're not like the rest. You're not going to tolerate nonsense. You're not going to compromise on the things that matter. And let me tell you something else. Men don't chase the woman who says yes to everything. They chase the woman who challenges them to grow. The one who says, if you want to be in my life, you have to meet me where I am. Not above, not below, but equal. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect. That's knowing that love without boundaries is chaos. You end up drained, confused, and wondering why you don't feel seen. But when you say, this is what I need, and if you can't give that, I wish you well, you take your power back. It's not easy. I'm not going to stand here and act like drawing boundaries doesn't come with fear, doubt, or even some pain. Because when you start setting them, people will push back. They'll test you. They'll call you difficult, emotional, too much. But that's just because they were benefiting from you having none. And when the benefits stop, the truth comes out. That's when you see who's really meant for you. Because the right man won't run from your standard. He'll rise to meet them. So if you're wondering why he's treating you the way he is, ask yourself, what have you allowed? Where have you remained silent when you should have spoken up? Where have you compromised your own needs just to keep the peace? That's where your boundaries are missing. And when you fix that, when you say, I deserve better and I will not accept less, you won't have to chase respect. It'll come to you. The moment you start choosing yourself, everything starts to shift. The treatment, the energy, the behavior, it all changes. Because a woman with boundaries, that's a woman no one wants to lose. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to share something that changes everything in relationships, especially for women who feel like they're constantly trying, constantly proving, constantly giving. Here it is. Stop chasing. You don't have to chase love, attention, or commitment. Because the truth is, when you chase, you push it away. But when you stand still in your power, when you hold your ground, when you move with confidence in who you are, you attract everything you thought you had to run after. And the man who's meant for you, he doesn't need to be convinced. He needs to feel that you know your worth. You see, there's a difference between being open and being desperate. There's a difference between showing interest and abandoning yourself just to be chosen. A lot of women get caught in the cycle of chasing, texting first every time, overanalyzing his every word, rearranging their lives around someone who hasn't even made an effort. But when you chase, you tell a man, you're the prize, I need you. And that flips the entire dynamic. Because a man knows when a woman is moving out of lack instead of love. He can sense it. And the moment he feels that desperation, he starts to pull back. He loses respect, even if he doesn't realize why. But when a woman stands still, grounded, and secure in herself, he feels that too. And that draws him in. You don't attract what you say you want, you attract what you believe you are. So if you don't believe you're worthy of love unless you prove it, you'll attract someone who makes you work for their attention. But if you carry yourself like you are enough right now, without begging, without chasing, without bending, then you become magnetic. Because a woman who doesn't need validation is the one who gets the most of it. Not because she demands it, but because she doesn't depend on it. When you stand in your power, you create space for the right man to rise. You show him what you expect, not through words, but through presence. You're not texting at midnight when he's ignored you all day. You're not accepting last-minute plans. You're not playing games, but you're also not playing yourself. You're simply existing in your strength, and that energy is undeniable. It's not about being cold. It's not about pretending not to care. It's about knowing that your love, your energy, your time are valuable, and not everyone gets access to that just because they show a little interest. Some of you are trying so hard to keep someone in your life that you've completely abandoned the very thing that makes you attractive in the first place. Your confidence, your peace, your standards. But when you stop and reclaim those things, you shift everything. You become the woman who doesn't beg, who doesn't chase, who doesn't over-explain. And trust me, that's the woman who gets chosen, not as a convenience, but as a priority. Men notice energy. They may not talk about it, but they feel it. When you chase, your energy says, I don't believe I can get better, so I'm holding on to what I can. But when you attract, your energy says, I know my value, and if you don't see it, someone else will. That energy is powerful. It demands effort, commitment, consistency. And the ones who can't meet you there, they fall away, which is a blessing because you don't want just any man. You want the right man. And he doesn't need to be chased. He steps up when he sees a woman who's already whole. So stop chasing, stand still, stand proud, stand firm. Because the moment you stop running after love is the moment it starts running toward you. That's the power of attraction. That's the strength of knowing who you are. And once you tap into that, the game changes. Not just for him, but for you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be real for a second. Sometimes silence speaks louder than any words ever could. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do in a situation is not to scream, not to beg, not to explain, but to go quiet. Because when someone is used to your energy, your effort, your presence, your constant reaching out, your silence becomes impossible to ignore. It shakes things up. It makes them notice. And if you're tired of being taken for granted, tired of repeating yourself, tired of feeling like you're talking to a wall, then silence might just be your greatest tool. When a woman stops talking, it forces a man to listen in ways he never did before. When she stops over-explaining, stops defending herself, stops reacting to every little thing, it creates space for realization. See, most people don't appreciate things while they have them, especially when those things are always readily available. But remove your voice, remove your energy, remove your attention, and suddenly they start to feel the absence. That absence is loud. It speaks in every quiet moment. They thought you'd be there. And that silence, that's what starts to shift behavior. You see, begging for attention never works. The more you ask someone to value you, the less they do. It's backwards, but it's real. When you keep pushing for communication, when you keep initiating conversations, when you keep chasing clarity from someone who keeps avoiding you, it tells them you're still available, still waiting, still desperate for connection. And let me tell you, nothing will make someone take you for granted faster than the belief that you'll always be there no matter how they treat you. That's why silence is powerful, because it's not an announcement, it's an action. It's saying, I've said all I need to say, and now I'm letting the distance do the talking. When a woman is silent, especially after giving so much of herself, it forces a man to reflect. He begins to ask questions. Why isn't she calling? Did I lose her? Was she serious about leaving? That internal dialogue begins because you gave him room to miss you. But you can't get to that point if you're always the one trying to fix things, always the one sending the first message, always the one holding the relationship together by thread. At some point, you have to stop and let your silence create the consequence. Silence is not about playing games. It's about emotional maturity. It's about realizing that begging someone to care is beneath you. It's about choosing peace over confusion, because peace doesn't beg. Peace doesn't plead. Peace walks away when respect disappears. And the woman who knows how to stay silent at the right time holds all the power, not because she's cold, but because she understands that her presence is a gift, not a guarantee. Most women are afraid of silence because they confuse it with rejection. But silence, when used intentionally, isn't rejection. It's redirection. It's the pause that makes someone stop and reevaluate how they've been showing up. And if they don't notice your silence, if they don't come looking for you, if they don't miss your voice, your laughter, your energy, that's your answer. That's your confirmation. Because the right man, when he feels your absence, won't ignore it. He'll correct his behavior. He'll step up. He'll reach out. He'll make the effort. But you have to give him the space to do that. You have to be brave enough to stop filling the silence with noise. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. And when you stop allowing inconsistency, half-order, emotional laziness, and start giving silence instead of second chances, you shift the power back into your hands. It's not about manipulation, it's about self-respect. You're not punishing anyone. You're just removing yourself from spaces where you feel unheard, unseen, and unvalued. That kind of silence is strength. Silence is stress is blade. It dissolves. That kind of silence speaks volumes. And once you master it, you'll never have to beg for attention again, because your silence will say it all. Ladies and gentlemen, let's get one thing straight. Men don't value what comes easy. They might enjoy it, they might entertain it, but they don't respect it. Respect is built when a man has to put in effort, when he has to be intentional, when he has to work for your attention, your time, and most importantly, your heart. That's just how we're wired. If something is handed to us on a silver platter, we're far less likely to see its worth. But if we had to show up, invest energy, make sacrifices, and earn it, that's when it becomes meaningful. When a woman makes a man work for her love, she's not being difficult, she's being wise. She's saying, I know what I bring to the table, and I'm not about to just give that away. And believe me, any man who's worth it, who's serious, who's ready, he won't be scared off by effort. He'll actually appreciate it, because men love a challenge, not a game, but a real challenge that makes them rise. The kind that demands consistency, honesty, patience, and growth. And when a woman requires those things, she separates the ones who just want to play from the ones who came to build. Too many women think they have to prove themselves to a man. They cook, they clean, they do favors, they go above and beyond from the very start, all in hopes that he'll see their value. But what ends up happening is he doesn't even have to try. He sits back and enjoys the benefits without doing any real work, and the more you give without requiring anything in return, the more he begins to expect without appreciation. But when a woman says, no, I'm not doing all of that until I see consistency, suddenly he has to make a choice. He either steps up or steps out. Either way, you win. See, men aren't wired to chase something that's already theirs without effort. When he knows he had to earn your trust, your respect, your love, he's going to guard it, protect it, and value it. That's how you build long-term relationships. by not giving everything away up front. It's not about withholding affection. It's about having standards. It's about saying, if you want access to me, you have to bring something to the table too, because relationships are not one-sided. They require balance. And that balance only happens when both people are equally invested. A woman who knows her worth isn't afraid to say no. She's not scared to walk away if a man's not putting in the effort. She doesn't lower her standards just to keep someone around, because she understands that the right man won't let her go just because she expects something real. In fact, he'll appreciate it. He'll admire her for not settling, because deep down, every real man knows anything valuable is worth the work. The problem is, we've been taught that if you don't give a man everything up front, he'll lose interest. But let me tell you something. If a man loses interest because you made him work a little harder, he was never really interested in you in the first place. He was interested in convenience. And love should never be about convenience. It should be about commitment. And commitment always comes with effort. So if you want to change how a man treats you, make him work. Not in a manipulative way, but in a way that says, I'm not available for half love, for confusion, for guessing games. If you want me, show me. Because when a man knows he could lose you, if he doesn't show up right, he starts showing up differently. That's when you get respect. That's when you get effort. That's when you get the kind of love that lasts, not because you chased it, but because you required it. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something that will change how people respond to you, how they see you, and how they treat you. Confidence, but not just any kind of confidence. I'm talking about the kind that's rooted deep within, not loud, not arrogant, but strong, calm, and unshakable. Confidence without arrogance is magnetic. It's not about thinking you're better than anyone. It's about knowing you don't have to compete with anyone. It's walking into a room without needing to be the loudest, but still having the presence that makes people stop and notice. That kind of confidence makes a man look at you differently. That kind of confidence makes him realize you're not just any woman. You're that woman. When a woman carries herself with quiet confidence, everything about her energy shifts. She's not chasing compliments. She's not begging for attention. She doesn't need to post every moment online to feel seen. She already knows who she is. She's grounded. She's focused. And when she speaks, people listen. Not because she demands it, but because her energy commands it. That's the kind of presence that leaves an impression long after you've left the room. That's the kind of confidence that doesn't have to say much, because it speaks through the way you move, the way you look people in the eye, the way you stand tall in who you are. Men respect a woman who knows her value, not because she says it, but because she lives it. She doesn't need to bring anyone down to feel lifted. She doesn't have to flaunt what she has or put on a show. She just is. And that authenticity is attractive. It's real. Because when a woman is confident in herself, she's not waiting for someone to come along and make her feel whole. She already is. And that kind of wholeness is rare. It's refreshing. It draws in the right people and repels the wrong ones, because the wrong ones won't know what to do with a woman they can't control or impress with bare minimum effort. A confident woman sets standards without having to explain them 10 times. She says what she means. She respects herself. She's not rude. but she's not a pushover either. She doesn't overcompensate. She doesn't tolerate disrespect. She walks away quietly when things don't serve her, and because she's not afraid of being alone, she never stays in situations that make her feel small. That's what real confidence does. It makes you choose peace over pressure, value over validation, and truth over temporary attention. And the thing is, real confidence doesn't need a crowd. It's built in silence. It's built through experience, through lessons, through knowing that you've survived things that tried to break you. It's the way you bounce back, the way you carry yourself after rejection, the way you smile even when life is tough. Not because everything's perfect, but because you know you'll make it through. That resilience, that unshakable belief in yourself, that's what makes you powerful. That's what makes people respect you without you having to ask for it. Men notice that kind of confidence. They might not always say it, but they feel it. And when a man meets a woman who doesn't flinch when he pulls away, who doesn't chase him for answers, who doesn't break down when she's ignored, that gets his attention. Because she's not playing the usual game, she's playing a whole different one. She's focused on her peace, her goals, her growth, and if he wants to be part of that world, he's going to have to step up. That's the effect of true, humble confidence. It challenges people to meet you where you are instead of dragging you down to where they're comfortable. So when you want to shift how someone treats you, especially a man, step fully into your confidence. Not the loud, forced kind, but the real quiet power that says, I'm enough with or without you. That's what makes you unforgettable. That's what changes the way he sees you. Because a confident woman doesn't chase love. She attracts it effortlessly, naturally, and with grace.